Welcome to the 30th edition of Still Uncaptured with myself, Ndumiso Ngcobo.
And my name is Kgomotso Matsunyane. Simple as ever. No fanfare, no Ikadi cues in there or any of that kind of nonsense. Hello, my friend.
Who's got Khoi blood in here? Why am I? Although it would be fascinating, we still plan to do this.
What?
To actually go and have ourselves, our genome.
Without a doubt.
We really do, because
Yeah.
we might be surprised.
I
Won't we?
hope to be.
Really?
You know, there's nothing that's going to kill my spirit and my soul than anything that's going to say I'm 100% Tswana. Lord Jesus.
Do you feel a little bit like Oprah and how disappointed she was?
That she was in Zulu?
That she was in Zulu.
Yes. I want to be Mongolian or something exotic and fun in there, you know?
All right, please interact with us on our socials. And please check out our Spotify Still Uncaptured when it gets put up on Tuesday at 9 for every new episode. So 9 o'clock on Spotify, you go in there, you'll actually find us there. And of course, we do put it up on other platforms later, YouTube.
Friday on YouTube.
Yeah. And of course, our socials, yours are?
Motsomatsu on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok.
And of course, Ndumiso, the boring one. I'm on Twitter at Ndumiso Ngcobo. And of course, I am on Facebook, Ndumiso Ngcobo. Right? So today's show, we're going to touch a little bit on, we're going to talk a little bit about funerals.
Yes, black funerals to be specific.
Black funerals, how it is that we inter the mortal remains of our loved ones.
Yes.
All the things that we do and don't do, the good, the bad, the ugly, the ridiculous, right? We're also going to have a little bit of a conversation about adoption.
Yeah.
You know, black people, this is a conversation that always takes place amongst us. Particularly, and it's so interesting that we talk about funerals first, because usually, you know, during funerals, you have these conversations about, Nkosi yami ingane zona. Ingane zizoya kuphi, you know, things about, then we're going to delve a little bit into how we get around in this country. Taxes and e-hailing.
Because our government hates us so much, they refuse to give us proper public transport.
Can we just say this? Successive governments, successive administrations. And this actually goes back even beyond the 31 years. But of course, we can't really talk too much about those.
Right.
No one was planning around us, right?
Yeah. We can't be comparing ourselves with such low standards as apartheid.
We can't. But let's get to black funerals. Wena awungcwabi.
I find it fascinating because you have no qualms about skipping funerals. You don't do funerals.
I just don't.
How do you get away with that?
Do you know what it is with me about funerals? Is that even when I do show up at funerals, hardly anyone ever remembers me being there, because I find I call it the whole production so ridiculous that my participation in it tends to be as little as possible. You know how it is that during funerals, there's always someone going up to the podium to say, can you please just tell the people outside to shh. Guess where I am?
You're the one outside.
I'm always found amongst the cars with the boots, with the cooler boxes. I'm always outside because I find what goes on inside funerals, those long speeches. Guys, if I had my way, there would be like a gong for every 5 minutes that someone speaks.
Especially
stop.
When they start with the words, I won't be long.
You must,
the one who says Angzuba mude is the one who's going to speak the longest.
And when someone starts their whole I suppose eulogy, their whole speech about the deceased, which 90% is hardly ever about the deceased, by the way. It's always
about you.
It's about you, right?
The person giving the speech.
So I've known her since 1968. Ngithi wait, sizofika in 1987. When are we going to get there? So I find that one of the things that has happened, one of the great things for my life that has happened with funerals is that I now have this option that even when it is someone that is close to me, because people know exactly where I stand, the money that I was going to spend getting onto that flight to Durban, booking a hotel, getting around and so on and so on, I'd much rather just send you a 3,000.
I do expect you to be at my funeral.
Of course.
Okay, I do expect you to speak.
Of course, I expect to speak.
No. I'm just wondering.
They are levels.
Okay.
They are levels.
Just checking what level I'm on.
Although, guys, this does not mean that if I didn't come to your family's funeral that you're not at that level. But sometimes, I'd really rather just, send you, money. I just send people money because I know how much funerals cost.
Right.
So I'd much rather do that than waste all that money coming there in order for me to become part of the crowd that stands outside being shouted, shh, Tulani. What am I there for?
Yeah.
Do you know? Because I don't participate. I really don't.
Maybe the intention is part of it. Because mine, like in a real sense.
Yeah.
When they say you're showing up for people.
Yes.
Physically, to say, I am here. Whatever it is that you need or however I can help, I am here. So it's not like I'm obsessed with going to funerals, all right? I don't enjoy going to funerals, although one of my favorite movies is based around two people who enjoy going around funerals. It's called Harold and Maude. By Hal Ashby.
Yes.
That's my favorite movie of all time, period.
Yes.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever year, Hal Ashby and Harold and Maude.
Your morbid fascination with funeral
I love funerals.
Fascinates me.
Okay, but see, there's a showing up for people.
Yes.
But I've also been a driver.
Yes.
When you live and take care of your 83-year-old mother,
course.
you become the de facto driver.
Yes.
So I accompany her. She's 83. She's losing a lot of friends. Do you understand? It's just...
Yeah.
The time is nigh. So we tend to go to a lot of those. But then there's like also those... I also measure myself as to how close do I feel to either the deceased or somebody closest to them.
Yeah.
My friend Bev had her sister die. I had to show up for her and her sister because I knew her sister. I don't necessarily like going to funerals. No, in fact, I don't like at all going to funerals of people that I don't know because then it feels kind of false and not something that I particularly want to do. My friend Barbara Bell died in Cape Town a couple of months ago.
I remember this.
I really honestly felt like I'm close enough to her, to her husband Terry, to her children Karen and Brandon, that I'm part of their family, literally.
Yeah.
They are part of my family. I'm part of. We spent Christmases together. That I'm like, I'm gonna go to the funeral.
There are funerals that you absolutely cannot miss.
Sure.
And I know this because my friend, my one of my oldest friends, we've been friends for 44 years. When his brother passed away, Ufana, may his soul rest in peace. I think in June, was it June or May? I did go. There was no way that I was not going to go and bury Fana because he was like more or less my brother. If some
de facto,
de facto, because Sfiso is my brother.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So I had to absolutely go. But as a rule, just generally as a rule, if you and I, Sazana and I, Tratin is a situation, I've never really slept at your house and that sort of thing.
I will tell you this though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I will admit.
Yes.
When the priest starts, that's my cue to get the hell out.
Do you know how I know? And this has got absolutely nothing to do. Really, it doesn't have to do with my beliefs or the lack thereof in terms of my spirituality and the fact that I'm an agnostic.
Right.
Because even when I was a believer, I never used to be able to stay inside any church building for more than 30 minutes without saying, I know kwanele manje.
But the truth is most priests, for me, are frustrated actors. Like
they just see
by a performance.
They just see an audience and then
and it's an audience probably bigger than on a normal service.
Yeah.
Right? So now it's like, yes. I'm going to take this opportunity.
Because people have been asking, and I'm gonna say it. People have been saying, hey, but some of these politicians, if they weren't politicians, what would they do? Gwede Mantashe once chastised the media, okay, with tongue, firmly in cheek, said, but you guys, because I think the Secretary General of the ANC had spoken out of turn about something.
Right.
And Gwede was like, no, it's your fault. If you put a microphone in front of this man's face. Umbags would be such a great preacher.
He would have made a great preacher.
He would have made a great preacher, Umbags.
Because, he's certainly someone who grew up wanting to be a celebrity.
Whenever he sees a mic, Umbags loses his mind.
But who loves a mic more? Figilen Balula or Panyaza Lisu? Is there a microphone? Is there a microphone for me? Oh my God! But Akazela, they get so excited. Oh my God!
Yeah, no, there are certain. They've got they do have very stiff opposition right now. Gayton.
Although, since the Kafir story came out,
he has been shy.
He's still on Gayton. He buys a no.
And also, can we just to be fair, have you ever seen Umusi walk past the microphone?
Never.
Musi Maimane.
You're Maimane or not a microphone?
Juju. No, some politicians know how to use that microphone. But sir,
yes, okay.
But anyway,
what were we talking about? Funerals.
We're talking about funerals. But funerals. What are some of the? Sometimes we say all the negative things about funerals.
Right.
But you have I found it to be such a beautiful story about the people in your crescent, in your cul-de-sac.
Right.
When there were recently 2 funerals around you. Just talk about it.
It just happened. One was a woman in her 60s, and another was a young man who was born, I think, in 83.
Yes.
A carjacking shot. Shocking, horrible. Do you understand? And the sense of community. So every time somebody dies in our crescent, there's about 80 homes in our crescent. If there's a funeral in a home, then everybody pops out 50 rands. Ultimately, it doesn't seem like a hell of a lot of money, but ultimately we get to like 3,000 to 4,000 rands, depending on how many people have contributed.
Of course.
Which kind of goes to some ways. They will come and pray with the family for a few minutes on one of the days, but Lusindisa, and then on the day before the funeral, they ask if the family needs matsoho.
Yes.
Right? Because there's so many people. How African women congregate to cook for an event is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I grew up resenting it. I grew up saying to myself, I'm going to be a feminist and I'll be dead before I'll be seen being the woman opilang.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
I saw no value opila mazamba to go there.
Never mind. For me, this is not even about your feminism. Just hold that thought.
Right.
But for me, it's always been but guys, come on. In 2025, if you're buying vegetables in bulk at Food Lovers Market, you can just say to them, listen, I've just bought however much, I've just bought 5,000 rands of vegetables.
Right.
Just cut them for me so that there's no need for all that. Because also I understand that there's also a certain level of ugliness that happens in the chopping, and
there can be, without a doubt,
behind the scenes about the politics of it. And so how you used to be is how I pretty much still am, where I'm like, why are we chopping? Why are we?
So not everybody's going to buy their food at Food and Lovers Market, which does offer that service, which is fantastic, and I certainly want to take advantage of it. Yeah. Right? Let's say they choose another place that doesn't. First of all, those places should. Yeah. Because of how the economy of the funerals work. They should absolutely provide that service so that you're not sitting there. But anyway, because when the more women there are, and there were at some point I think about 20 women, and we made mincemeat of those vegetables.
Yes.
Within 2 hours.
Chop.
No. It was done, and I'm like, there's something quite beautiful in this. I love this. What I do not like, the bad about bad funerals, is the cost. I think this is a white economy. because sure, now there's a lot of black people who own funeral parlors. So you can see they're benefiting from it. But before it used to be much more white people or Indian people who ran funeral parlors, unless you were like a Kupane in Soweto all those years and all that kind of stuff. The cost of funerals must be interrogated. I did a film about funerals.
Yes.
It was called Heavy Traffic. It showed on SABC. It was part of Steps for the Future.
Yes.
Okay? And it was basically one of a series of films that highlighted the social changes of AIDS wreaking havoc on the African society.
Yes.
Yeah, it was when people were dying. And I was at a funeral of someone who had died of AIDS. And I was looking at I was at Avalon and I was watching the traffic. I don't know if you remember during the time of AIDS in Ndumiso.
No, I remember.
That there would be one cortege followed right by another. It wouldn't stop.
There was no for me at that point, I just knew to never drive through any township.
Right.
Period. If it was a Saturday,
Sunday.
I was not.
Right.
I would much rather take a taxi,
right?
Because at least taxis can do whatever they want. You can get there by other means. Taxi drivers.
Yeah.
But it used to be quite bad. Not that it has really abated all that much now with the population explosion.
Right.
I'm still finding that if you go to any township on any random Saturday or Sunday, it has helped. I think COVID has also helped in that now people are also burying on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and so it's not as bad.
But I think I was hoping COVID would leave more of a permanent mark on how we bury. Remember during COVID, 50, 60 people maximum?
There were 63 people at my father's funeral purely because he passed away, as you remember, during 2 weeks into the hard lockdown.
Yeah.
And can I be honest?
You were happy.
Deep, Papa. I was so happy that this is how we had. I found it very dignified. I found it to be more or less exactly how he would have preferred it, even though obviously my brother is a priest, my father, to be sure, Ngcobo, anyone who hears that name from where I come from knows that, quite frankly, he was a celebrity. And so they would have...
He was a principal,
He was and a choir conductor. And a pretty amazing one at that. So there would have been easily maybe 3,000-4,000 people there.
Right.
But you're talking about that and what has changed. Do you know what has changed? There are things that we now consider almost our customs, our rituals, and so on. And do you know what changed black funerals?
What?
Electricity and refrigeration.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
We never used to do all of this nonsense that
You guys in KZN have taken it to another level.
We really have.
Us Tswanas are pretty good. Say like if our funerals tako makhayenkwa, 7, 8, 9 a.m. By 12, people are leaving. Nina, you haven't even buried someone by 12 o'clock.
Lalela. Here, and even in Gauteng, a lot of people still observe a lot of it.
Yeah.
Pretoria, whenever I've gone to funerals, which is why I don't mind so much going to funerals in Pretoria and Mpumalanga and Northwest and so on. Because you can meet someone at a shopping mall at 10 and they're all dressed up and you're like, oh, where are you going? They're like, oh, I just come from a funeral. In KZN, you meet someone at 10 o'clock dressed in black.
They're only then going.
No. They are still on their way.
Yeah.
They are still on their way and they will be lucky to come back home before sunset. It's the whole day.
It is the whole day and it's a lot to ask.
Yeah, it's a lot, yeah.
So I resent the capitalism of funerals.
Yes.
I hate it. I resent it. I wish we could do better because it puts families under so much pressure financially.
I abhor it. I hate it with, sometimes I stand there at a funeral and I am watching 80,000 rand being put into the ground. And I'm like, and I look and sometimes this family that is taking 80,000 rand.
They insist on a casket.
They are going to put 80,000 rand
and put
into the ground.
Dirt on top.
Which, by the way, is just it's just sitting there waiting for, can you imagine the number of times people then come afterwards and dig up those graves just to steal these caskets?
Right.
Because the economy around funerals. I mean, I had a friend who lost her mother in White City, and I went to support her, and I was there, and we were talking weeks later, and I remember her saying to me, Ndumiso, when I woke up on Monday morning, and I just wanted to make myself a cup of coffee, the people that had come to mourn with us, that were in the house, that had been helping us, had cleaned out. There was no sugar. There was no milk. There was no coffee. There was no bread.
Yeah.
There was nothing. People just came, descended upon the house like ants, and when they
took everything,
left them with absolutely nothing. And that's the ugly side of it as well.
Yeah.
Because I remember burying my my mamncane, my aunt, and two of my uncles. I saw the same thing happen.
Yeah.
People living with 5 kg of sugar. People living, and I thought,
and I think it was after doing that film, Heavy Traffic, that I decided, Uguti, I'm going to be buried with a coffin from my.
Yeah.
Do you remember Joe Slovo's coffin? Can we not go back to that? But do you know how difficult it is to buy? Because those funeral parlors, they sell packages. You can't just buy legacy.
Yes.
Do you understand? So it's like, that coffin comes with a tent, 50 tables, 4 tables, 50 chairs, blah, 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 blah. So it's not economically viable. So, and I resent the fact that white monopoly capital only never told us about investments overseas.
No, they didn't.
With black people, they insisted on only selling one sort of investment. Funeral cover. And I hate that it's an apartheid remnant that even my mother now panics about her, like, do we have enough funeral cover for everybody in the family?
Yeah, because it's one of the conversations I recently had with my own mother, where I have had to learn that, I'm 53, my mother is 81, and quite frankly, between the two of us, who's going to bend? Whose wheel is going to bend? I have to just accept that I can't bend her wheel.
Right.
Because if I were to say to my mother, and so, of course, it's obviously unnatural, but it's one of those things that I really pray that the natural order of things follows with me, so that I am able to bury my mother, because I would hate for her to be there for my funeral, because there are certain things that my wife Debuho knows. Things like cremation, where my mother might go, right. Because I really don't see the point of us utilizing so much land.
Proper real estate.
Real estate that could be, we keep saying there's no space for the living, but we're busy taking up space for the dead.
Like, and for burials, you need prime real estate.
You really do need prime real estate, because you can't just bury anywhere. And so there are certain little things that where if I say to my wife, I want to be cremated, and whatever that thing is,
my market.
Yeah.
You can
exactly.
You can get your ibhokisi my market for $5.99 kuphela. Siyabuya khona manje.
I like that. But, when we were talking with...
Are you sure you want to do this now?
No.
Okay. Welcome back to Still Uncaptured. Let's move text a little bit. We were talking about funerals. So people die, and then sometimes children get left behind. So I always used to say black people never had a thing as adoption, because children were automatically taken into the household. Uyohlala nomamncane, norakhadi, nomalume. Do you understand? It was like...
Life was fundamentally and naturally communal.
Right.
Before colonialism came, it was just very, very communal. Well into... after colonialism came, people still maintained it even in the townships. It was always very communal. But something has changed, hasn't it?
I think a whole bunch of things have changed. So adoption is different. You only say adoption now, it means like legally adopting somebody who might not have any familial blood with you. Whereas before, it typically, not always, definitely not always, there were definitely exceptions. It would be somebody usually related to one of the deceased, if not both of the deceased, you know? But my mother tells me a lot of stories of when she was growing up. I think we're disingenuous as Black people if we say like, before colonialism, we just used to take the kids into our homes. Yeah. Because children whose parents have passed away and have now been adopted don't necessarily get the same treatment as Antwana Basekaya. It is a fact that we don't like to admit that they end up being a kind of slave. We have a word for slave in Setswana. That's how much we understand indentured labor.
Yeah.
In my culture.
No. There are words even is closer. Is it Kgomotso or Kgomotso? I think it's Kgomotso. In isiZulu, a slave is Grilla. So yeah, we do have those. We do have those words.
So it's an uncomfortable thing in the families where the child may be living in the family, but they're not necessarily treated equally. You hear these stories many times when people are older. When I was growing up, my mom tells me horror stories. They were found out, all of their family, it was weird. They lived kind of like in this compound in Alexandra. My grandfather built a compound for all of his children to have houses in. Hey, Marino, he was so advanced on many levels. But at the same time, it came with a lot of problems.
Yes.
Not everybody was created equal. Not everybody was treated equal. So some of the children from this one have to take care of the grandmother. Some of the children from this one are taking care. And then we're talking about children ages 7, 8. Basically, just able to stand on a coffee can and cook pap. Do you understand? But the treatment of how we treat our adopted children leaves a lot to be desired.
If you actually think about the people that used to write radio dramas, I do not know, there go Radio Setswana.
Oh, yes.
And when I was growing up, Radio Zulu, a lot of them had that theme. The theme of how orphans are treated. The very first, I'm one of those, you know that I'm weird, but the very first novel I ever read from cover to cover, because I started reading at the age of 3, when I was 5, was a novel called Ubudoda Abukhulelwa by Professor Nyembezi. And the theme was how this particular orphan, how badly, I still remember Uvusumuzi, how badly he was treated because he was an orphan. And of course, he was fobbed off to the relatives and he was not treated very well. Now, what's fascinating, I grew up the first 10 years of my life in Mpumalanga Township, Unit 1, where the first house I lived in, A662. The number of children that were living with their aunt and their uncle who were adopted because the parents were either had died or it was a single mother who had basically just gone off and no one knew where they were, but they were living with relatives. A lot of them, to be honest and to be frank, were nothing more than slaves. They looked different from the kids in the house. Their uniform was more tattered.
Right.
They hardly ever had shoes to go to school. When the others were going out to play, they were expected to be doing chores because it was almost like tit for tat. We give you food, but you've got to work and work for us. And I remember, because this is a very common name, but I remember one called Umpume around my house. And we'd always be asking her, Umpume, we'd even go and ask the aunt, how Umpume can she not come to play? Hey, Umpume has got work. And you're talking about a 9-year-old.
Right.
This child was cooking, was cleaning after the other ones. And so there's always been something ugly about
I'm quite curious about our viewers and listeners. Like, were you raised in a family like that? Was somebody raised in your family like that? What was the treatment like for you that was meted out to you by your relatives? I bet you we're going to hear some horror stories in Ndumiso.
Because I have, on both my Twitter and Facebook, come across those threads where someone just starts out and says, Yeah, but being raised as an orphan in someone else's house, and then you will just start reading these stories about what some of these people had to go through, where sometimes they had to wait until everyone. Can you imagine you're a child? People had to wait until everyone in the house has eaten and is full, and then food whatever's left is for them because and these are Christian, God-fearing people that on Sunday will talk and say, yeah, I took care of my sister.
I took care of my sister's children.
And you think, hey,
is that taking care?
Yeah. And not to say there aren't any great stories. I mean, there are some great stories of black people that went and they did right and they adopted children, sometimes even adopted children that were not theirs, or adopted children. I know so many people like that even went and took them to varsity and so on and so forth. However, there's this thing, because you are very specific, there's this ugly side we don't talk about.
And it's not something unique to us, clearly, right?
It's not,
because if you read Charles Dickens, right? Like the story of the orphan is an old story. That we all know, neglected, not as loved and cared for like the other children are.
And for me as a father of four, if you ask me, about the source of every gray hair I have on my head and all my hypertension or whatever my issues are, things that keep me up at night are things like that. I mean, I used to, particularly when they were young, I'm just like, please make sure, Ndumiso, that you live. Because I do not want these children cannot possibly end up in someone else's hands.
But also because you know that nobody is going to love and take care of them and spoil them and allow them to be their full potential as much as you can. Yeah. As much as I know that my mother, I can depend upon her. As much as I know that my in-laws, the Masinyas, love these children. But you're right. No one can be quite there the way that I can and my wife can. And so I, as even a man who doesn't pray, but at night there would be like a moment of just like, let me live. Let me live. So you do have moments.
Oh, everybody's got moments.
Let me ask you this. Do you ever bargain with God?
No.
No more bargaining?
No, but the reason I even know what you're talking about is because I used to. Where you are just sitting there, you are writing this exam, you have not really studied, and you say, God, if you can just reveal these answers, I don't want to have to do this module again.
All right, we're going to take a break, but before we do, you know what we forgot to do today?
Gratitude.
We forgot to do gratitude, so let's take this moment. And it's inspired by the conversation we've just had, in the sense that I talk about my mom all the time, I mean, we love each other and we drive each other insane, but really she is my comfort. She is my strength. She is everything that I wanted to be, that I want, that I would have wanted from a mother. Let's put it that way. And I'm grateful that I grew up with a mother who showed me what love looked like as a child. And was incredibly responsible. Guys, anybody can be a parent, ne? Any idiot. Uyakwazi ukuzala. But to be a parent, a present, conscious parent who says, I'm going to be, you choose to be there for your children. You choose what kind of parenting you're going to do. You choose whether you can be better as a parent or whether you don't care. So I'm grateful that I had a mother who chose me.
You talk about that, and in one of my past gratitudes, I also did talk about my mother, and I also did talk about my family in general. But I have to say, today in particular, if there is one thing that with everything that has happened with me, particularly being so fortunate for myself. And I was saying to someone just over this weekend, and I was saying, I say, I feel that I've lived a charmed life. In fact, I was saying it to my daughter, Samafuza. I said, I feel like I've had a very charmed life in the sense that, a lot of things have gone wrong. But can I tell you that when it comes to people who are my rock, outside of my wife, my brother, Father Mxolisi, Rudolph, Pascal Ngcobo, and I am saying these names just to embarrass you.
As for Rudolph, I didn't see that coming.
Rudolph, Pascal Ngcobo. You know, my brother, and it's a long story, but something happened in my family 39 years ago where we basically lost one of ours, even though he's alive, but he had such mental health problems. Right. And I think to myself, had Mxolisi not been there, it was just me. And I remember at the time that he made the decision that he was going to join the religious life and become a priest. And I remember how much I was panicking. I panicked because when people go into that realm, you don't know how they're going to deal with the family.
They're quite isolated, ne?
They can choose to be isolated.
Okay.
Mxolisi made the very conscious choice to be there.
Aww.
And this man, in terms of just all my familial trials and tribulations, you know how extended family, how difficult it can be. Mxolisi has been such for me like a rock. Like someone that I know I can depend upon this human being. If I'm one of those people, and I think we're very similar in this way, that we do not have too many people, you and I, that you know that this person has got you 100%. Yes, we've got friends, but very few friends you can say that they've got me. As in, if I pick up the phone now and I'm like, dude, I need 10,000 rand. Now, not too many people can do that for you, right?
Not too many. They are there, and thank you. You know who you are.
Not too many. With me, I think it's far fewer than yours, right? So Mxolisi is one person that I am so grateful that I have this brother because I think that he loves me even more than I love him, and I love him so much. So that is my gratitude for today.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Still Uncaptured. So, Ndumiso. Hey, I've got a pet peeve.
What is your pet peeve, dear?
Ngifuna ukuthi ngiyabathanda. Kodwa that would be a lie. Ngiyabesaba ukundlula ukuthi ngiyabethanda.
Who do you fear more than you love? Who are we talking
Taxi
about?
drivers. Especially Bakomba. Huh?
Quantum.
Can we talk about quantum taxi drivers?
Minibus taxis.
The first thing I want to say is that minibus taxis fill a vacuum that fuels the South African economy.
In fact, one can even go as far, and I have gone that far, in writing, in columns, to say, thank God we have got the minibus taxi industry came along when it did, because it has taken the egg off the face of so many successive governments, because governments and administrations in this country have failed abysmally to provide public transport for the population in South Africa.
They're not interested.
There is no South African economy without the minibus taxi. There isn't.
The South African economy would collapse.
It would collapse. If the taxi drivers were to be serious and say there is no minibus taxi that is going to travel on a particular day, if they had that much unity and said let's give it a month. I'm not giving them ideas, but if they did.
We'd be in trouble.
No. We would be in trouble. And those people, for me as well, and I'll say this about taxi owners and the people that started it, I would say visionaries, and I would say that these are the people, these were the very first serious black entrepreneurs that went into traffic. The people who did not get tenders, who did not get a percentage.
Not Ramaphosa.
No, the real millionaires.
Right.
Taxi owners.
And I repeat, not Ramaphosa.
Not Ramaphosa. No.
Not that wealth. The
No,
wealth,
no.
like Richard Maponya.
People who created
Do you
their
know
own wealth.
my grandfather?
Yes.
One of his side hustles, along with starting the coal business with his brothers and sisters, along with starting rental shops and all that. One of the things that he used to do is take his Chevy and after work, after they close up the shop, rank. Go pick up people because, as you can imagine, transport was a problem, and that's one way he could make extra money.
Yeah, all those Valiants,
Exactly.
the Impalas, they used to be called a pirate, and whatever. So, alongside Bokaza Mtaung, real entrepreneurs, Bomaponya, Kgomotso, the people that actually built their own wealth with their own hands, taxi drivers are right at the top.
Right.
However,
there's a big but. However, so we're speaking about this in context of there was a young man in Soweto, Maponya Mall to be exact, who was murdered brutally and burnt. And he's not the first one to be burnt. And there's this burning thing, Iyabo. There was another one about 4 or 5 years ago who was burnt in Pretoria. Young man who had just started Uber 3 days before, who was attacked by taxi drivers, Bambulala. For the first time, I saw the community rallying to say, no, man.
This can't be.
You cannot do this. First of all, you are not going to pick me up from my house. And you're not going to take me to my house. Uber and other e-hailing services like Bolt, Taxify, whatever, are there to fill a hole you can't. So
it's a void.
You're filling a void.
There's a niche. There's a niche that the minibuck taxi cannot fulfill.
There's a niche that they will not be able to fulfill. And it's okay.
Yes.
That's capitalism. That's the way the cookie crumbles, right?
Yeah.
So when you read about taxi drivers forcing a mother to take her children out of her own car because in your own mind,
where's your permit? Why are you transporting people without a permit?
Right.
I mean, there were times when you and I were doing radio shows together where I would go pick you up from because we work together.
Yep.
So if I have places for 3 other people in my car or 4 people that I work with, now I can't. Because I'm taking money away from people who would not even be using the minibus taxi to begin with.
People who are using e-hailing services would not be using the minibus at all.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you do. And you can imagine you're coming with the groceries from Maponya Mall.
Yeah.
And you're going to wherever where the taxi. Now the taxi is going to drive you out short left. You still have a kilometer around there to walk.
To walk.
No, the e-hailing services fulfill a role that we want. Why can't you coexist with e-hailing services? Here's something else that's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know that Santaco started its own e-hailing service?
Of course,
You
I remember.
started your own e-hailing service, Santaco. It was called Shesha.
Yeah.
You didn't bother with marketing. You didn't bother with advertising. It failed dismally. So now it's my fault because you didn't do your due diligence, because you failed.
And if you actually think about it like really seriously. When Uber, the whole idea of Uber was starting, right? Who would have been best placed in terms of just basic capital? Who would have been best placed to fill that?
I'm a taxi driver.
Because those are the people that already had the money, that already know everything that there is to know about transport and managing a fleet. You would have imagined that these would have been the first adopters of the e-hailing system. And no one would be none the wiser, and so on. And quite frankly, I know a whole bunch of taxi owners, particularly in my home province of KZN, that are owned by taxi drivers. And so the idea is brilliant. The idea of just someone that is going to pick me up from my gate and take me to exactly where I need to go. And if I just so happen on the way to decide, actually, you know what? I want to just stop and buy myself a cold drink. That flexibility, the Uber will sit there and wait for you. I can't do that with a minibus taxi.
Right.
So you are not competing for the same market necessarily. Why are we here? Why are we murdering people who are in e-hailing?
So my fear is that the taxis run themselves. Is that there is not one single person who can actually control the taxis because the government didn't do their job. We are so dependent on them. But at the same time, these are people who are also ambitious. At some point, Santaco was going to start an airline.
Yes.
Halala. Igupi. Santaco started Ishesha. They got into the e-hailing service.
Yeah.
It failed. Maybe look at yourself in the mirror, Santaco. Why did those two things fail? And so because you failed, that means nobody else in the country should? Isn't that a little backward?
And the thing about it is, I can almost hear, I can almost read your comments as you watch this on Spotify, where people are going to be saying to us, hey, Mapoloba, isibindi ezingaka. Where do you get the gall and the balls to actually talk about the taxi industry? Can I tell you a very interesting story one time? This is probably about, it doesn't really matter, but I would estimate 12, 13 years ago. I wrote something on my Facebook, just something about the taxi industry in Durban. Within an hour, I got a phone call from an 031 number, and I picked up. Do you know what how the conversation went? Sanboy, Mapoloba, is that Mapoloba? And I said, yes, it is. Do you have a taxi? I'm like, no. In other words, remove that post that you just put in because I had said something about the taxi industry.
And you did.
Guess what Mapoloba did? I was like, quietly, delete.
No, do you really want to die? Because taxi drivers will kill you. Yeah. They will kill you without blinking.
Taxi operators, because the issue is really so much more about the people that own them rather than the people that drive them. Right? So, and the thing about it is sad that when you have an industry, I don't think that Santaco want to have that reputation, that horrible reputation that people are just scared of you. That people are scared of you. That the only way you can get your way is by intimidation and stopping people. And right now there is this whole thing around people when someone just thinks, my family is getting a bit big. I think I need to buy myself a 7-seater. And people go, do you really want to buy it? In other words, I don't know, are the automobile industry, the manufacturers, are they happy that the only people now that are going to be buying 7-seaters are going to be people who've got permits?
But
so
why?
I can't bet if I've got 5 children, I can't buy a 7-seater?
But the thuggishness of this is what is at the core of our conversation. Yeah. There's a thuggishness that is really uncomfortable. The thuggishness that you feel like, hey, I wonder who these people voted for.
Yeah.
What do we have in common with each other that my rights are so inferior to yours that you would be even willing to kill me to assert yourself and to intimidate everybody else into falling into line?
But at the same time, and I hate to be one of those people, I also have to be asking the question, this country, are we on autopilot? Who is in charge? Because I can tell you right now, we talk about taxis as public transport, and I'm obsessed with making this point that the minibus taxi industry is not really public transport.
It has never been public transport.
This is publicly owned transport that just happens to be transporting the public. Where is our public transport? Where is government?
You meant this is privately owned.
They are privately owned. The taxi industry is
private.
Privately owned. It's not. It's not publicly. This is not public transport.
Right.
It is privately owned. These people are just one person owning 300 taxis or 3 taxis or however many. But where is our public transport? Why are we here? Where is government's responsibility to transport the public?
Right.
Where does it come? Where does it end?
But do they even feel obliged to transport the public? I mean, PRASA just started functioning again now.
Yeah.
Do you know what a difference in working people's lives PRASA makes? When trains are working, it's like a 5 rand trip versus a 23 rand trip.
Yeah.
One trip on public rail services, itreni, is about 5 rands versus 20 rands a taxi. For someone who's earning 2,000 rands a month, 4,000 rands a month, that could be life-changing.
You and I are global citizens, and so we go to other countries. Do you know how beautiful it is to be in other countries where you don't have to own a car? You just get into a bus. It's always there on time. The train is on time.
Yeah.
The CEOs of company are on the train.
If you've missed the
with
train,
you.
the next one is coming in 4 minutes. 10 minutes, whatever, it tells you, and it arrives. So the answer to your question, we are certainly on autopilot. We have never had such a rudderless president as President Cyril Ramaphosa is right now. Either he doesn't care. I'm starting to think that he really doesn't care. He's got his billions in a sofa somewhere in one of his many, many estates. He's got billions, this man. What does he care about South Africa? And I used to remember people used to be like, it should be Cyril who should be president. You know why? Because he's got money. He won't be corrupt.
Yeah. And you know what is interesting about it? If anyone ever comes at you, just remind yourself that the SG of the ANC, of which from where President Ramaphosa comes from, do you remember what he said recently when none other than former Minister Naledi Pandor made exactly the same comment that you're making? Cyril, the SG, Mbalula said, she is entitled to making that call. I have said already on this particular platform, and I've said this, and I said, for me, I really do feel that the president is an absentee slumlord. He really is. He just doesn't care. He's just there to collect the rent.
Yeah.
And the rent here is taxes. And that's all I feel. He comes.
Or whatever else other deals. Because he's kind of like Trump in the sense that he certainly didn't stop doing business when he became president.
Where is the super trains? Where are the super trains that were... Where's the smart city we were promised? Where is any of it?
We should be able to get into a train right now and arrive in Cape Town 12 hours later, if not less.
In less.
Do you understand?
Less,
if it was a super, but again, those, what do you call those super trains, right? There's no, imagine going to Durban in 2 hours. In the they wouldn't be needing all these taxis also on the street, right? Because the train would be functioning and a lot of people can pack in there. There'd be less carnage on the roads. Every December, every Easter, we'll always arrive alive. How are you going to arrive alive when we don't have public transport?
All we need to do right now, because also I must say, I am one of the minibus taxi clients, because now and then I really just feel like it, because there is no place quite like the minibus taxi to get stories. So I know all the signs. I know, Mangsa Devon, I know how to get on to them because the stories there are amazing.
Anyway, it's been great having you on the show. Please tell us what you think. You have very strong opinions, and we like that. As you know, we're completely left field. We're not the blacks who are going to tell you what you want other blacks to tell you about completely. And we love being completely irreverent. Until next time, bye-bye.